Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast, where we talk about life, death and experiences in between. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and I trust that the conversations within this podcast will offer value, insight and information into what happens in the afterlife. To find out more about the free online community and extra content, be sure to click subscribe and to check out the links in the notes below. And now, let's get into today's episode.
With the mask on, the oxygen mask, I couldn't breathe. Like there wasn't any oxygen getting to me or the baby. I could hear everything, but I couldn't feel anything. And then I opened my eyes and I wasn't in my body. Then I suddenly came back and I was like, oh, I came back and I could suddenly feel how old and how painful my body is. Like where I had to shake her and be like, Rishi, like shake her, and then her breath came back. But eventually, like a month later, she just didn't wake up from sleeping one day.
Hello, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast, where we talk about life, death, and experiences in between. In this episode, we do talk about all of these topics. We talk about life, we talk about death, we talk about grief, loss, depression, trauma, some of these heavier topics. So if you're listening today and this conversation raises something for you, I really encourage you to reach out and find somebody who can support you with that, who you can talk through your emotions with, and ensure that those things don't get buried down, that actually they come up to the surface and they enable you to enhance your life moving forward. My guest today is Rohini Moradi, and Rohini was born into a spiritually driven life in Tehran in Iran. Her father ran the only Hindu temple in the city, and her family often traveled throughout India doing yoga and following spiritual practices. It was a massive religious military upheaval that sent her family to the US as they took on a very different lifestyle from what they were living there in Tehran. And then in 2017, Rohini had a near-death experience during the birth of her second daughter. This was an event that changed everything and unfortunately did not end there. Today, Rohini is a spiritual teacher and a speaker. She's also the founder of Magic Inclined, which is a spiritually focused community and home of the Magic Inclined podcast. So Rohini, welcome to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. I'm excited to have you here because this episode, this conversation, it's got a bit of a personal one for me because my family actually lived in Tehran for quite a few years before I was born. So I wasn't there, my brother was there. And as I grew up, this was often quite a big point of conversation in our family discussions. And it's always been in the back of my mind, I wish I could understand more. I wish I knew more about the life that they experienced when they were there. So I'm excited to be chatting to you today. Can you take us back? How did this all happen? And how old were you when you left Tehran and went to the United States?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Kirsty. It's an honor to be here. And I left Tehran when I was 8 years old, but we were trying to leave for most of the 80s. I was born in 1981 in Tehran, and the Muslim Revolution had started in 1979. So I was born right at the beginning, chaotic times of it. I missed some of the more horrible stuff, thank goodness. But my family was doing their best to flee that whole time.
Wow, that's quite a long time, isn't it? Quite a big effort as well. And you remember all of this?
I really do. I mean, I'm one of those very strange people who remembers very detailed instances from my childhood. I just had, despite it being a war-torn country where I lived and experiencing, I don't know, so much hate from the outside, I had a very good childhood and felt very grounded. So I really enjoyed a lot of the moments. So I absorbed them. I remember a lot of Tehran.
Yeah, wow. So fast forward a couple of years, you said that changed everything for you because you were living this spiritually driven life while you were there. Well, your family were, you were a part of that, embraced by that. You then left and you started to focus more on material type living. Everything sort of changed for you. What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, it was weird and it felt uncomfortable, of course. But when we were living at the temple, it was just like we meditated every day. I played outside all the time. There was always people coming. I was surrounded by people, and we would travel through India quite often. And it was like my favorite part about growing up. I loved going to India. But when we finally fled Tehran, we actually stopped in Dubai to be able to get papers. From Dubai, we went to India to be able to get a green card. And then from India, then we came to America. But once we arrived, it was quite strange. Growing up, I had fantasized about coming to America, as many Iranians actually do. But I had fantasized about being here so much. I was just like, oh, wow, I bet you everything's easy. And like, everyone's so nice. And, like I was just so excited. There's no war.
Yeah.
But when we finally did arrive, I realized that the world I was living in, the spiritually driven world, was something that most Americans were unfamiliar with. And I kind of had to hide a part of myself. So while I was hiding this really big part of myself, everything I'd known up until that point, I tried to fit in. I tried to be like all the other kids. I was in ESL. I couldn't speak English. And it was kind of tough. It really shook me. People threw rocks at me, called me a terrorist.
Seriously?
It was, but it was just like a really big shift because it was all like love, yay, the inner power, inner world, meditate, and then all of a sudden it was like met with like real darkness, and it was just ignorance more than anything. But it was like such a shock to my system that I spent like years and years trying to fit in so that I don't cause any attention, so I don't get the brunt of like all that aggression thrown at me,
Yeah. There's a lot on that, isn't there? There's a lot going on for someone who's so young. You've got the physical change, like changing countries, you've got the environmental change, everything that's going on, but to have all of those elements as well, there's a lot there. Yeah. I'd like to come back to that. I'd like to understand how that played out further in your life. But if we don't mind, I'd like to fast forward. You had a near-death experience when you gave birth to your second daughter.
I did, yes.
Are you happy to share about that?
Yeah, of course. So maybe I can tell you a little pre-story about it because it ties in.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it was around springtime 2017 when I couldn't go to bed, and I just like searching through Google, like all these different flights out. I really wanted to go back to Tehran, to be honest with you. And at this point, I had a 4-year-old daughter. I wanted her to know my side of the world and my family and, what my upbringing was. Because up until that point, like it was just always my husband's family. This, like she's very American. Of course, she grew up in America. So I'm like, I want her to know a little bit about my history too. There's no way I could take my husband or my daughter to Iran. It's just not safe for them. They have American passports. You need an Iranian passport, or you have to change your name. And it's like, it's a lot. It's a long process.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So I decided to start searching for the nearest thing, which is India, which was my second home growing up. So ultimately, later that night or earlier in the morning, like we booked flights to India out of nowhere for like a couple weeks out, which was really strange. I was feeling like that big of a pull. So we went out to India. My mom said, okay, if you're going to India, make sure you go to Rishikesh and you receive a Vedic astrology reading, excuse me. So I did. I made sure we go through Rishikesh. I got a Vedic astrology reading, and in this astrology reading, the astrologer said that oh, wow, look, there's a faint line here. It looks like there's a possibility that you might have a child, but it's very unlikely. If you do have another child, it'll be a girl, but the line is very faint. So I don't see a possibility or a future or something like that.
Yeah.
And that really shook my husband and I. And prior to that, we really weren't thinking about having any other kids because we were just like so happy with our daughter Pele. It wasn't even in our mind. We're like, oh,
Yeah,
we just
right.
love you. And and then it just like shook us. So we're like, okay, I think we do want another child. And getting this news is like kind of devastating. So we went through a lot of conversations and decided to add to our family. So we came back and I got pregnant and my daughter was due February 2018. She was actually born on 2/18/18, and the pregnancy was like so amazing. I went through yoga teacher training and I did so much like inner work. It just happened that way. I think going to India just reawoke that the inner need to connect spiritually. Before she was born, I guess there's nothing. I can't really think of any of the details okay. So the night that she was due, she was actually born on her due date because I was really determined to meet her. I was so excited, so excited. We went to my mother-in-law's house. I was eating like spicy pizza, like
trying to bring it on.
Anything on the list. I was like, yes, I'm gonna do all of that.
Funny.
Usually, like with my daughter Pele, I was just like, when it comes, it comes. It was very like relaxed, but I was so excited. Like I felt such a kinship to this baby. And not that I didn't with my daughter Pele. I did. We have such an amazing connection. But it was like a different magnetic feeling. Like I just needed to meet this person. And so we went to my mother-in-law's house and she at the time lived in one of these like taller high-rise buildings and like near downtown San Francisco. So they were all hanging out upstairs and I would go up and down the stairs that no one goes down those buildings. No one goes up and down those buildings stairs. So for hours, I was just like going up and down like, oh, this baby's coming tonight.
You're determined. Yeah.
I was so happy at this time. I was so uncomfortable. I don't even know how I did it. I was just like, just trying. So I finally got tired. I went back to the apartment. I'm like, I'm just going to be patient. Whatever. What am I doing? And as I said that, my water broke and everyone looked at me like, oh, it's happening. I'm like, my water's never even broken before. This is exciting. So we started rushing to the hospital. Everything seemed fine, but my contractions sped up really quickly. And when we were at the hospital, like the pain was like getting really bad, like within an hour. And at the hospital, they said, I'm not very dilated and like the baby's probably going to not come soon. I'm like, no, I can't handle this pain. So it was really bad. I even asked for drugs. I'm like, just help me. Yeah. And they're like, well, no, just wait, just let's see how it goes. Maybe you can walk around a little. I'm like, you have no idea how much I've walked already. Okay.
Up and down stairs.
I can't walk anymore. So as I'm like trying to move around, the pain's really bad, like so bad that even like taking a step, my whole body would shake. So I was laying down, just like trying to breathe the best that I could. And my mother-in-law and my mom walk in at the same time. And right as they walked in, like my breath stopped. It had nothing to do with them. I just want to point that out. It just, the timing was very unique. So my breath completely stopped. The nurse who was helping us panicked because my heart rate had dropped to like way below what's safe. And so had the babies. And like the color in her face completely had dropped when she saw what was happening because it happened very suddenly. And I was like, I can't breathe. Like I really couldn't breathe. I was out of breath. And this whole time they're like, okay, they pushed my husband aside, or the nurse pushed my husband aside and started wheeling me into the emergency room because it, like even with the mask on, the oxygen mask, I couldn't breathe. Like there wasn't any oxygen getting to me or the baby. And it was getting quite dangerous. So we got into the emergency C-section room, and all I really remember with like being in that room specifically is like just it was like a pounding in and out because everyone was panicked. The anesthesiologist couldn't be found. They weren't expecting to do a C-section. I couldn't move. Like they kept telling me to get off from this bed to another bed. And finally the doctor came to my face, was like, if you don't move, you and your baby will die. And like, he just kept yelling at me and I just couldn't breathe. I couldn't move my body or anything. And at that point, it's when I like exited my body for moments. It was very, I could see and I could hear everybody panicking around me. And side note, like they wouldn't let my husband in at this time. He was still outside because it was chaotic in the room. So I could hear everything, but I couldn't feel anything. And then like I opened my eyes and I wasn't in my body. And I felt this sense of peace, like real peace, where I wasn't afraid of what was happening, but I felt really happy and peaceful, which is really weird in that situation. And I felt like connected to everything that was going on below me, but also everything that is and isn't. Like it's just like this ultimate connection to the universe. And I felt like it's like I don't know how to explain it better than that, but it's an ultimate connection to the universe. I was feeling pure blissful love, but also my own separate awareness. So as this was happening, I remember just like looking down at my body, and they had moved me from that bed that they kept yelling at me about to the other bed. And the anesthesiologist had come, and they're like putting the mask on and like, I don't know what they were doing. Then I suddenly came back and it was like, oh, like I came back and I could suddenly feel how old and how painful my body is in a sense. And it had nothing to do with the birth, but it just felt like I was in an old vessel. Like it just like, I didn't feel free. Like I felt really constrained, but I knew I wanted to be in it. It's really hard to explain that feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately the anesthesiologist came, and I'm at this point too, like, I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. And eventually when the anesthesiologist came and everything was calm in the room, they let my husband in, and he's like, you look so happy. It's like for what was going on. I was just like, And then my daughter was born. This all took like maybe 10 minutes total, you know?
Oh, is that
but
it?
there was
wow.
But there was just like so much going on. Like,
yeah.
I mean, from the beginning of me being pushed into the emergency C-section to the anesthesiologist coming. So it felt like the longest period of time, but it was probably like 10 minutes or something like that. I'm not really sure. But yeah, she was born. I just felt in bliss from the point of returning to my body onward. And my husband's like, she was like pooping on you, like all this was happening, and like you were just like looked so happy, and we were like, are you okay? Like,
yeah.
ah.
Oh wow.
It was so weird, and it all had to do with our breath. And it just turns out that like actually like a month later, I was holding her and she stopped breathing, like where I had to shake her and be like, Rishi, like shake her, and then her breath came back. But eventually, like a month later, she just didn't wake up from sleeping one day. I think there was like a lung thing. I don't know, something with the breath, but we both experienced it, and then she experienced it alone, and I wasn't there. That's the story. And I'm not laughing because it's like funny, but it's just like, It's such a weird, I still haven't processed the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's only been a few years, hasn't it?
yeah, it's only been 3 years. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to have purpose at this point, or just know who I am or what I am or anything like that. I'm doing my best, and I think I'm pretending a lot to be like a normal human. But yeah, like I feel like I blocked parts of it where it hasn't absorbed into my being yet. It's a weird state. I'm living in a weird state.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. My heart, like, I knew this was going to happen because I knew a little bit of the backstory, just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
And I said to you before we started, oh, I'm going to try and hold it together. But if my heart's breaking, I wasn't even in it. So I just, I honor you and just send all of the love of us and the listeners and everything to you, because I couldn't even imagine what you've been through. And I love your rawness. I love your honesty of saying, hey, actually, I'm kind of making it up and faking it and just really not sure what I'm doing, what my purpose is, because that's very real. And I think that's a beautiful place. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's a beautiful place. And yeah, I really recognize that. So thank you so much for sharing. I want to come back. I've written a couple of notes here. The astrology reading. Now, your mother said to you, go up to this certain place, get this certain type of astrology reading. And then what came out of that led on to decisions that you hadn't already decided you were going to do before the reading. You decided to extend your family.
Yeah.
What is it about that reading or that particular type of astrology that really made you outright believe it with no doubt?
I have no idea. That's a really good question. But during the reading, there wasn't much prediction stuff involved, which I really liked about it. That was pretty much the only prediction thing that was happening with there's a possibility you might have a daughter if you don't. But the astrologer was telling me pretty much exactly who I am. He went over what I had gone through in my life up until that point. And he did the same for my husband too. So it was just like, I trusted it all of a sudden. And I had never really received an astrology reading or anything like that before. I just like Googled stuff about myself on the internet.
I do that. I think we all do that.
So it was like really shocking for me to be like, how is that so precise? How do you know I changed careers at this point? I did this at that point. Like exact moments in time. And yeah, it really blew my mind. Now, I'm not saying like it's all real, like, or not. It had an impact on me in the moment because the other stuff he was saying was very aligned with me in general. So I was like, probably real. I didn't even think twice about it, to be honest. I was like, that's real.
Wow, isn't that interesting? Yeah, and I love the prompting from your mother, because I'm assuming that you've grown up, quite a spiritual environment within your family situation, and that you were inclined to talk about these different things, talk about spiritual topics and have readings and live that way.
Yep.
It just, I find that so fascinating that your mother says, I mean, it was quite a distance out of your way, wasn't it, to go up there to get the reading?
It really was. We landed in Delhi, which is where the airport is. And our plans weren't even to go up north in that direction. So I think it's about 3 or 4 hours out of the way to go to Rishikesh from Delhi. And it's by car only. And it was quite a trip. But I feel like we had to go there. We ended up naming our daughter, who came from visiting that place, Rishi. Like it just... and like the line of work I'm in now, I teach people how to, open up their energy centers and connect to like different realms. Or it's like pretty crazy because I owned a bartending school before all this happened.
Wow.
So I'm not like,
I love that though.
Completely different world for me.
Yeah.
Even though I had this spiritual upbringing, that's not the world I was living in whatsoever. So, like parts of it feels destined, but I'm so apprehensive about believing that everything is destined. I fight with this idea a lot because I wonder, how could we be born with like a whole list of things that are supposed to happen to us. You know, like, why would that even make sense? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But it feels like destiny because it all just aligns so perfectly. But who knows? Like, is that my subconscious pulling all this stuff in from childhood? Like, I think about all this stuff. What is it?
Oh man, I can just imagine the thoughts in your head. You must have a very busy mind at times because there's a lot in that. I love that you're bringing up the concept of, is it predestined? Was this meant to happen? Because where I was going with the astrology reading, I was thinking, it's amazing. If my mother told me to go get a reading and it was hours away, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe if I ever pass, if ever the stars align and I happen to be there at the right time and they're open and they've got a spot, then, you know, that's meant to be. But if you hadn't have gone and had this reading, very potentially your near-death experience wouldn't have happened because you would have decided to have another daughter. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It gets my mind thinking because was your experience, do you think your near-death experience was predestined?
I don't know, but I do think that, but I don't want to think that, but I do think that.
Again, I love the honesty there. I love it because we don't have the answers, do we? We totally don't. But my mind goes down to these tracks. Yeah, exciting. So yeah, I was going to ask you then, what do you think the purpose of your near-death experience was? How has it changed you?
Well, I mean, it's changed my whole life. I feel like that the purpose of my near-death experience, of losing my daughter, of all of this, was to bring me back to my natural essence and to be a teacher, to show people that they all have the same power everybody else does, to show people that they're magnificent and that they can change their lives with like a blink of an eye if they really wanted to. And from childhood, I always felt like that there's this light inside of me that I need to protect. And this light that I need to protect often got tested by the outside world. And sometimes I gave in and gave it away. But I remember even like being a 25-year-old and wanting to write a children's book about showing them how to keep their natural light, because in a way, I feel, and this is just my mind, who knows if it's real or not, but I feel that most of the world's problems could be solved if people believed in themselves, loved themselves, and thought they were enough. Like, I really believe that fully. But who knows? But that's just me, this tiny little dot on this planet, thinking that. And I feel like it brought me back to that purpose.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. I think that's really interesting. Did you ever think beforehand that something was going to happen?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's just general anxiety or not.
Yeah. Actually, I'm just going to tap into that. I totally hear you on that, because I talk about how I always knew something was going to happen before I had my near-death experience. I just knew, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know whether it was just me. I don't know, maybe I wanted a bit of attention, or, you know, maybe there was, I don't know what. And so I kind of just carried around this thing that I knew, but I didn't know what it was. Or how can you know about something that you don't even know what it is, or when it is, or what it's going to look like? But I just knew there was something. And I've spoken to a lot of other experiencers who are saying, in hindsight, I think I always knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah. I knew like I was going to lose a daughter. I was obsessively looking at Sid stuff every night on my phone, you know, but I didn't know. No, I just had the anxiety of thinking that I know. And I knew something big was going to happen, but I didn't know what. And I think that resulted in me being kind of a hypochondriac for a lot of my life. Like now I've released that. I mean, it still comes back sometimes, but I don't know. Was your experience in that way too, where you just like were afraid of some things or thought you were sick when you weren't?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I was only 12. I was so young. So I think I just had a really curious mind. And I remember thinking up things and just thinking how so many things just didn't fit into my world. They didn't fit into my surroundings, my thoughts. And, I used to ask questions about, the one that jumps to mind is when I was really young, I used to ask about colors and going, well, what if it's actually not the color? What if red, you see blue, but I see red, but someone else sees green? What if we don't all see the same thing, and yet we all have this label for it? And we actually just learn that that's what that thing is. And I was going, but what if it's bigger than that? What if the emotions we feel, we've named them something, but, I can't process this very well. I can't communicate it very well because I was young. I'm talking probably before I was 10 years old, I was having these thoughts and trying to question them. I wonder if some of these promptings come down to intuition, and that actually we just know things are going to happen before they happen. We just don't quite know what they are. And then maybe after it happens, in hindsight, it's easy to look back, isn't it? So I don't know. Lots of thoughts around that. But I find it interesting that perhaps you did know, and you said that you knew you were going to lose your daughter. That fascinates me. Yeah. You also said that you wanted to be back in your body, that when you came back into your body, you wanted to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to come back in? Why?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I have a lot of love in my life that I'm not ready to let go of.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that's the time where I let go of it. And I wanted to be surrounded with it still. I think that's really what brought me back.
Yeah. Oh, I love
and
that.
And the doctors.
Well, there's the physical aspect as well. But so there was no element of you had a choice. You felt like you could go either way. Did you feel any element of control?
I really didn't. It was for me just like a floaty experience. It's the best way I can describe it. It was quick, even though it felt long. And that's about it. I don't feel like it was my choice to go. I don't feel like it was my choice to come back. But when I did come back, I was happy to be back. Even though my body felt old, I was happy to be here still. I love my life. And I know it's not permanent, but I'm really enjoying experiencing it right now.
Yeah. I think the same way. I often think, if I was to go, part of me is like, woohoo, cool, exciting, this is going to be amazing. And then part of me is just like, I am not done. No. I am not done yet. I just want to hang around for a little bit longer. I actually, there's a lot to experience. And I say it quite often, I'm very much about the physical experience, that we are here in physical bodies. So let's really do this. Let's have this experience rather than wishing we were somewhere else. And I'm aware that some listeners listening to this, it might tap on a bit of a heartstring or push on something, because when you've experienced something so magnificent and amazing and had that freedom that you've talked about, that just you're out of this old constraining body, it can be hard to actually come back and reintegrate and to come back into this world and pick up jobs and different depths of different experiences as well. So I'm not discounting anyone's experience or how they're feeling. I'm just saying, for me personally, I think, the love would bring me back. I'm not done yet is how I feel. So how do we know when we're done? I don't know. I wonder whether people actually know before they go. They have an inkling. And then I don't know about you. I wake up on days and I'm like, I feel like today could be one of those days. I feel like today something could happen. And then I get to bedtime and I'm like, well, it wasn't today. And then I have it again, a few months later or something. Do you ever have that?
Yeah, I have. I have something similar. I've been battling depression. So most of 2020, because my trauma was pretty recent, and trauma on top of trauma is like really tough to deal with, like to process. So when 2020 happened, it opened up the wound so much bigger. So I was very suicidal for most of the year, like extremely, like I could not get the thoughts out of my head. And I just wanted to like stop feeling so bad. And I remember at one point, like I fell down and I was like, because I was asking to die for a while. And to ask that is dangerous in my belief system. It's not, it goes against everything I believe. But at one point I remember realizing that if that actually happened, like I would be really, really upset with myself. And I started pleading that I don't die yet. I started begging. I'm like, I'm so sorry I said that. I'm so sorry. Please, like, I want to live. And just declaring that I want to live changed something within me. Who knows? Never say never. But like, it brought like a new joy for life, a new zest for life. And it helped strengthen my will to live. But just to say, please, I do want to live. I want to keep experiencing things, even if it's bad, even if it hurts, even if it's painful. I don't think, I don't want to go to that point. But also I've thought about this a lot too. People who've experienced like really big trauma, or even like had a near-death experience or something like that, at least the few people that I've spoken to about it, not very many people, probably 2 other people, they have these like really big jumps too. It like extreme feelings of like, well, it's already been there, like let's test it a little more, or I'm just like really happy now, like kind of a manic happy sadness, which I'm experiencing right now. So I don't know if that's because of experiencing something greater than we previously understood before or not. But it's a really weird thing.
Oh, it totally is. Totally is. What I can hear coming through from you, Rohini, is a very strength. There is just such a strength as I'm connecting with you right now. I'm like, wow, this girl, she's got some strength behind her. So I think that's probably going to account for a lot of what you've been through, being able to get to that point where you're saying, you know what, I want to die, but actually, do you know what? I don't want to die. I want to be here and experience this. So very strong something that's going on in you, and I really admire that. I think that's great.
Thank you.
I want to come back to the old body. I can't shake this. The old body, do you think it was ever old? I know our bodies don't last lifetimes. I know that the physical part is the part that disappears. I know that for sure. Do you think that the old body reflects any kind of concept of past lives, or that you've been here before, or reincarnation, or anything like that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I wish I knew how to answer it, but I don't really know. I feel like for me, like what I meant by that's a really good point though. That could have something to do with that feeling. I've never reflected on it, but the initial feeling was when I left, I felt lightness, and not like woo, like lightness, but it felt easeful. I don't know how else to describe it. It felt free and filled with love. And then like coming back to the body, all of the brain stuff that's attached to it connected with me again, where it's like the stress, like my bad back or whatever, like it felt old in that way, where it's not as free. I felt constraint in that, maybe it's constraint in my thoughts or something like that. But I've never reflected on this. This is a really good question. You've just opened up a new portal for me. Thank you.
Oh, yay. You can't even begin to imagine my mind, how it is. It's just always full of questions. But it was when you talked about feeling old, I was like, oh, old soul. And then it leads on to other thoughts. Because like it would be ridiculous that you came into an old body. I mean, you're young and you're vibrant, and bodies don't last. So I was like, I wonder if that's a memory from being outside of the body, that it taps into the bigger memory of past lives or the bigger picture. And then coming back in, some of that's still resonating when you're back in. I don't know.
It's blowing my mind though.
Blowing my own mind every day.
I'm going to sit with it.
If you ever have any more thoughts, come back to me on that. I'd love to hear more.
Of course.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts around this? Do you have any thoughts as to, I know you've discussed briefly why it happened. Who do you think you'd be, or how do you think your life would be if you hadn't have had the near-death experience, or if you'd had the near-death experience and then not the loss of your daughter?
Wow. I don't think my husband and I would be together because we didn't know how to appreciate each other before. And I'm not saying that fixed everything. It's not even about fixing, but I think perspective was put into place for us. If I had the near-death experience and I didn't lose my daughter, I feel that I don't know. I don't know what life would be like. My son wouldn't be here. We probably wouldn't be where we're at. I would probably be stuck in old patterns for both answers. And my patterns were very sad at the time. You know, I struggled with myself a lot. I was really unhappy. I was carrying a lot of childhood trauma that I wasn't aware of. And yeah, I didn't feel loved. I didn't know how to fully love. I was just in a really bad place. And I think this trauma of the near-death experience is what set it off. But eventually the loss of my daughter too, like it broke me in half so big that I became a puddle and I had to rebuild myself. And in doing so, I was confronted with a lot of the things I was holding that possibly weren't mine or weren't for my benefit. So it's opened up pathways for me to be able to really work on myself and intentionally choose who I want to be, rather than just absorbing my environment and reflecting it onto others.
Interesting. Yeah, I appreciate the honesty once again. I just think, wow, you know, I really love that. I've forgotten my question. Oh no. Oh,
it's that kind of day.
No, it totally is. This is so interesting though. Thank you. I have just totally lost my train of thought. My daughter's at home. She's running up and down the hallway and slamming the door. I don't know if you can hear it. And I'm like, oh, please be quiet.
I can't hear it. My son
that's good.
My son was screaming out there a second ago too. I was like,
I didn't hear any of that. So that's good. Yeah. No, not
amazing.
Not at all. Oh gosh, yeah, I know, right? My question, it was a good one too. It's totally just flown out of my head.
I bet it'll come back.
Yeah, once
so what were we talking about? Yeah.
It was about who would you be if it hadn't have happened?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What about going back to your life in Tehran and then the foundations of your life and then coming to America and maybe losing some of that concept, having a very spiritual experience after a very spiritual beginning in life. Do you think there's any connection between that? Do you think that something had to take place to get you back onto the path that you were on? Do you think you needed to get back on or?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that we do choose our parents, you know, I really do. And I do believe that this belief comes just from having children too. And like, there's that sacred connection, this unspoken thing where like they chose you chose them. Like, it's just this thing. And, yeah, I feel that I wanted this spiritual path. And I think a part of being on a spiritual path in this way, which we're all spirits, we're all on a spiritual path, let's be honest, but like intentionally, I feel that that's why I'm here. And I had to experience not being on that path and coming up with my own ideas and using discernment was really important for me and my soul's growth. So I do feel that it's connected, definitely. And I know we talked about the predestined stuff and I'm really conflicted. I don't know.
Because yeah, exactly. My mind's already looped back to, was this all part of that predestined plan? And how much choice do you actually have? How much choice do we have? So with stuff we will never, ever know the answers to, we can never actually 100% define. Yeah. What are your thoughts on why we're all here? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose? I know it's a huge question. As someone who potentially checked out and then came back, why are we here?
Well, I feel that we're here to experience whatever it is. Like, we're here to experience. And I kind of imagine us, I've been asking this question since I was a little kid. I would ask everybody, I'm like, why are we here? What is the purpose of this? People are like, okay,
so
that's kind of a big question for you. Like, but I need to know, why am I here? But I feel like we're energy churners, and it's like a slow evolution of churning energy. And like we take in energy, and the energy we output changes our surroundings, right? So I feel that in a way, we're here to absorb some of these like negative, who knows if it's good or bad, but these negative feelings, these things in the world that aren't for the greater good. We're supposed to take it in and churn it out and make it into something open-hearted, filled with love, and like continue just doing that, like just keep churning energy. And the more I realize I practice this, sometimes it's burdensome, and that's why this depression thing comes up sometimes, because it's a lot to take it in constantly. But I feel like the more we do this, the more our surroundings change, and the more our surroundings change, then the more the people around our surroundings change, and so on and so forth. It's like the ripple effect just keeps traveling further and further and further. So I don't know if that's like even a solid answer to this beautifully big question, but I think we're here to churn energy, whichever direction we want to. We're an energy manipulators in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I quite like that, energy manipulators. It's not a term I've heard much of, but I really like that. And again, thank you. It's just, I love to ask this question to get people's insight, or I don't know, some people have very, very firm beliefs. Others have just want to make a very general statement. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate, Rohini, you coming on and just having such an authentic story, just being raw and vulnerable. I really want to honor that. You have shared some amazing insight with us today, and I know the story continues. I mean, it's so recent as well, and just really want to acknowledge your words today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing about your experience, about your beliefs, about your background, and everything that goes with it. I've loved chatting with you, and yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christy. It was such an honor to sit with you today. Thanks for having me on your awesome show.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with all of the events we have going on, and to visit www.letstalkneardeath.com to join the VIP community.